I have a story. It's a true story, and it shines a nice light on my dad. And of course, he's worthy of having a nice light shine on his memory. In the 50s, there was a Carroll County resident totally disregarding game laws. Now, Dad thought highly of this person for reasons other than his poaching, as they had grown up together in the farming communities of Stockton and Mount Carroll and Argo Fay. So since Dad spent a lot of time at the Savannah Army Depot with his career, he spent a lot of time in the backwaters, hunting and fishing, and the federal game warden deputized my dad because the depot was such a remote area, and the federal game warden, was busy with his activities at the Savannah Refuge. So while the federal game warden and my dad were visiting about activities at the depot, the poaching guy came up. Seems this man had been hired to be the state game warden for northern Illinois. The federal game warden was not pleased, but my dad was. And Dad's logic was as game warden, this man wouldn't violate game laws. Well, to make a long story short, he did work out. He no longer violated game laws and was excellent at finding game violators in Carroll County. Dad smiled whenever this subject came up. Well, I told you the game warden story, so I could tell you this story. I know you'll find it difficult to believe, but I was not a star pupil in school. I had my moments on the high side, and I had my moments otherwise. I even quit college once. My dad had a fit. But I went back and tried again. My counselor said if I had a semester of all A's, she could get me into Quincy College, where she had attended. Well, I met that requirement, and I became a student at Quincy. Father Gerard was the resident priest at my dorm, and he was also the dean of philosophy. There was a fire in my dorm. The fire started in the room next to mine. Someone pulled the alarm, and the building was chaos, with everybody heading to the exit. Father Gerard was at the exit. Where's the fire? And no one knew. Finally, I got to the exit, and I knew where the fire was because it was the room next to mine. So I told him, and Father Gerard told the firefighters. Later, through the year, Father Gerard spoke of this incident often. I really didn't do anything special, but Father Gerard always had a kind word for me. You had to minor in religion or philosophy at this college. I chose philosophy, and during my junior year, the philosophy department was short on staff. Father Gerard couldn't schedule a faculty member to teach the final course many of the non-Catholic students needed to graduate. He chose me to teach it, probably based on the fact that I knew where the fire was. Nonetheless, this was a milestone in my life. I left the you cannot hold a party without me attending sort of guy to a serious student, into learning, to identifying with the college, and into graduating. Teaching the philosophy course changed me. It is not until later I realized the parallel between the game warden and my college life. Well, I've invested quite a bit of time in telling you these two stories. I could tell you a few more, but it's time to talk about church giving. I'm the stewardship chairman this year. I am not new at this. My first year as stewardship chairman had its tense moments 30 years ago. I was the newest elder in this church in Fairbanks, Alaska, a Presbyterian church. And I knew I was chosen to be stewardship chairman because nobody else wanted to do it. Well, I didn't want to do it either. Speaking to anything in the church was difficult. For me, my spiritual life was like the Randy Bonjour before I taught philosophy. The poacher before becoming the game warden. It's difficult for pastors as well as members to be an advocate of giving to the church. For that matter, the pastor that made me stewardship chairman consistently left town on Stewardship Sunday. That's a true story. If you feel queasy about stewardship, you are not alone. The former stewardship guy at my Alaska church put emphasis on church gifts being tax deductible. The giving at this church was poor. Tax deductibility obviously was not being embraced. The pastor wanted a new approach, and he handed me an airline ticket to a seminar every other Presbyterian pastor and a few stewardship chairmen were going to attend. Among all the discussion and materials, I selected a work on the need for the giver to give as opposed to the need for the church to receive. There was a long class that day on the subject, and there was a book. Back at my home church, after speaking and writing to the need for the giver to give, it was obvious this was a much better approach than singing the praises of tax deductibility. In speaking to and writing about the need for the giver to give, I crossed over. Like the game warden, like the student who became the philosophy instructor. Giving became something which defined me. Like the woman with the alabaster jar, like the boy with the loaves and the fishes. I not only increased my giving, I took the attitude that I would not say no to anything that my church asked. Well, it was not long before the church leaders figured this out. And soon I was teaching junior high Sunday school. Do you know what it's like to teach junior high Sunday school? The boys are into bodily function noises. And the girls are into how gross the boys are. Then I taught senior high Sunday school. Do you know what it's like to teach senior high Sunday school? You better know your lesson, inside and out, front to back, top to bottom, and don't you dare go out on Saturday night, or these kids will eat your lunch. I joke about my teaching days often, and I shouldn't. I encourage you to teach, if you can devote the time and learn the lessons. Just like there is a need for the students to hear the lessons, there is a need for the teacher to teach them. If you really want to understand a subject, teach it. You cross over when you teach. You get the concept of the teacher needing to teach, as well as the need for the student to hear. Just like the need for the giver to give, as well as there being a concept for the need for the church to receive. The woman with the alabaster jar, she did a wonderful thing according to Jesus. There was no doubt in her mind that she had done the right thing. And quite possibly, this was the sum of all her possessions. She felt a great need to be a part of Christianity and hence a great gift. And the boy with the loaves and the fishes. I hardly think this lad was out to give away his loaves and fishes on this famous day 2,000 years ago. Still, he did. It was a small gift which turned into a great gift, and we should keep in mind that all small gifts become great in the sight of the Lord. I have spoken to Stewardship 3 Sundays now. One of the reasons I chose June is because I was in town all the Sundays in June, whereas the rest of the year I can only attend every other Sunday. For all those who missed what I had to say about the woman with the alabaster jar and the boy with the loaves and the fishes, I will summarize in a letter in July. And as every teacher will tell you, hearing the lesson is important, and reading reinforces it. I ask that you give this letter priority in your life. Fasten it to your refrigerator with magnets. Tape it to the kitchen cabinet. Pin it to your bulletin board so you can consider it when you consider the other things that are pinned to your bulletin board. Scan it into your computer and make it your wallpaper. Think about stewardship to the end of making sense of the need for the giver to give, to why the woman with the alabaster jar poured its contents on Jesus, to why the boy with the loaves and the fishes gave up his bounty. Cross over. Make giving part of what defines you. I crossed over. If you take nothing else from these words, take this. It was one of the best things I ever did with my life. It made me a better husband. It made me a better father. It made me a better son. It made me a better teacher. It made me a better car dealer. It made me a better steward of all God that placed in my life, which He expected me to take care of, and it certainly made me a better Christian. Embrace the need for the giver to give. You should cross over. Amen.